the statement that didn't match. Hey, night listener. Tonight we enter the shadows. Dim streetlights blur through streaked glass. The rain taps the windows like it knows what you've done. Outside, a neon sign flickers for HR Diner. But the only thing open this late is doubt. Footsteps echo down the hall behind you, slow, unsure, the kind that could belong to a cop, a killer, or your conscience. You grip your coffee tighter. If this story found you, maybe it's because you've been followed too. So, before we vanish into this mystery, like the video and subscribe only if you can handle the truth buried beneath the lies. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? And what calls to you most, the truth, the thrill, or the justice? Now lock your doors, take a deep breath, and follow me into the dark. It begins in courtroom 7A. A woman takes the stand and says the one thing she's not supposed to say. I was wrong. You lean forward. Not just because of what she says, but how she says it, deliberate. Like someone reading from the end of a story they've only just started to believe. Maya Keller, star witness, the prosecution's silver bullet. And now she's saying the man they arrested didn't kill anyone. The DA looks like he's just been slapped. Your fingers hover over your pen. You weren't supposed to be here. You were supposed to be done with this case. But something pulled you back. Something restless. Maya looks straight ahead. I didn't see him in the hallway. She says, I only said I did because they told me I must have. The room freezes. You mean the police told you? The defense attorney asks. She hesitates. I mean everyone. The judge bangs her gavel. Whispers buzz through the gallery. The victim's family stares with wide, motionless eyes. You catch the look on the DA's face, fear, or something uncomfortably close to guilt. After court adjourns, you follow her, not out of instinct, out of responsibility. You've been here before. A dozen witnesses, a dozen retractions, but never one this polished, this clear. You catch her near the elevator. You knew what that would do. You say, Maya looks at you. Her eyes aren't scared. They're exhausted. They were never going to stop lying, she says. So I changed the story. She hands you something, folded paper, damp from her hands. Then she disappears into the elevator. You open it later. It's a sketch of the hallway where the victim died. But there's an extra figure, drawn one you've never seen mentioned in any report. You look closer. The silhouette in the sketch. It looks like you. What if you've been the suspect all along? You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. It was never about the truth. It was about control. The photo that wasn't entered. The hallway from Maya's sketch lives in your mind now. Sharp corners, carpet with a cheap floral pattern, an exit sign that flickers every 4th second. You've walked it before, during the early days of the trial, when the case still felt ordinary. But now you see it differently, because now you might be in it. You return to the evidence archive late. The clerk gives you a tired look, but waves you through. You still have access. Technically, you use it sparingly, which makes tonight feel like a betrayal. You find the file, case number 21296B, Jonathan Ream's homicide. You've seen it all, or you thought you had, but something new is clipped inside. Photo evidence. Item Napur 43C. Logged post testimony. A black and white printout. Not part of the original exhibit list. You hold it up. The hallway, just like the sketch. Blurred surveillance camera footage from a floor camera. Time-stamped 11:38 p.m. The victim was discovered at 11:41. And in the frame just visible before the image distorts is someone stepping out of a stairwell door. Tall, Coat collar high, head turned away. But the posture, it's uncanny. The way the figure slouches slightly to the left, the way the right hand reaches towards something, maybe a cigarette, maybe a phone, maybe a weapon. You stare at it for a long time. It looks like you, but you weren't there. You weren't. Right. You flip through the rest of the file. There's no reference to the photo in the trial transcript, no mention by the prosecution, no challenge by the defense. You check the metadata again. Filed 2 days after Maya changed her story. Stamped by someone named Kaamai Delano, a name you don't recognize, a name that wasn't involved in the case originally. You run the name through the internal system. No matches, like someone added the photo after the fact and didn't expect anyone to look closely. You tuck the photo into your notebook. The printer by the clerk's desk flickers to life suddenly. You didn't send anything, but it prints a single sheet. Your name, followed by a sentence. We told her the truth, just not all of it. You spin. No one's there. You check the clerk's desk. Empty. The lights flicker once, then stabilize. You walk out fast. Heart hammering. Photo clutched like evidence of your own past. Outside, your phone buzzes. Unknown number. One new text. That hallway sketch wasn't her first. A location is pinned below an old storage unit, just outside the city. You don't know why, but you already believe what you'll find there. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about what was admitted in court. It was about what wasn't. And someone just invited you into the part of the story they thought was buried. The prosecutor's smile cracks. You drive through rain the color of old bruises. The kind that doesn't cleanse it stains. The location from the text leads you to a row of derelict storage units just past the edge of the industrial district. Half the neon signs nearby are burnt out. A stray dog watches you park and doesn't bother to move. The gate isn't locked. Unit number 27 groans open with a metallic shriek like it hasn't been touched in years. Inside, the smell hits first damp paper, rusted hinges, old fear. Then you see them. Sketches, hundreds of them, clipped to clotheslines, pinned to foam boards, stacked in milk crates, every one of them drawn by the same hand. Maya's, same hallway, over and over again. Slight variations, different angles, shadows in different places, more or fewer figures, but always the same space, always that final moment before everything changed. Some of the drawings have names written in the margins, dates, small notes. One reads, "This is how they wanted me to remember it." Another, "This is how it actually was." You find one with your name in the corner. It's an outline. You, facing away, standing in the stairwell doorway. But in Maya's handwriting below, he doesn't know he was there. You step back, because that sentence shouldn't make sense. But it does. You don't remember being in that building. But now, your hands shake like they've touched the doorknob. Your mind ticks like a clock whose hands have been turned too many times. Before you can process, your phone buzzes again. Another message. Check his record. 2011. Sealed case. Juvenile division. No name. No punctuation. But you know exactly who his refers to. The prosecutor, Red Collins. You return to your office, soaked and silent. You should sleep. You don't. Instead, you use your backdoor access. Search Red Collins. Search type sealed case. Juvenile court, 2011. It takes longer than it should. And when it appears, it comes in fragments. Assault, obstruction, perjury, charges dismissed. Plaintiff minor, female, 14, witness Maya Keller. Defendant, unknown due to age, but the prosecutor who filed the final dismissal, Rhett Collins, you stare. Collins was involved with Maya a decade before he put her on the stand. He didn't just coach her, he owed her. And now she's changing her story. Not because it's false, but because she's finally off his leash. You visit him the next day. He smiles when he sees you. A smile polished for politics. A smile built for cameras. You don't sit. You lay the photo on his desk. The hallway shot. You point to the figure. Why wasn't this entered? He doesn't answer. You slide over a copy of the sealed record printout. I'm guessing she finally remembered what you buried. He says nothing, but the smile fades. That's when you know it's all true. All of it. The history, the manipulation, the reason Maya looked like she was finally breathing after a decade underwater. She was supposed to say what we needed, Collins says softly, not what she wanted. You stare at him. That wasn't a trial. That was theater. He nods once, then says something that chills you deeper than any lie. Everyone in that room knew it. You leave his office, ears ringing, because the sketch wasn't just a memory. It was an admission. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones holding the gavel. It was never about who saw what. It was about who owned the story. The locked drawer in evidence room. You've been in evidence room B 100 times. It never changes. Dusty metal cabinets, box files numbered with white tape, and that particular code that has nothing to do with air conditioning and everything to do with secrets. But today, something is different. Not the air, not the layout. You. You walk past rows of sealed folders and shelf units until you reach the back wall, a locker that doesn't appear on any official map. No number, no label, just a drawer heavy, rust-streaked, humming quietly like it holds something alive. You test the handle, locked, not unusual. What is unusual is the key in your pocket. You didn't remember it being there this morning. Brass, cold, slightly curved. No tag, no reason it should exist except for one. You slip it in. It fits. The drawer groans open like it's waking up. Inside a single, clear plastic bag, labeled item number 77D. Do not refile. Date 02/14/17, the night of the murder. You pull it out. Inside the bag, a single blood-stained glove. Left hand, black leather, torn at the wrist. A crumpled napkin from Benton's Bar and Grill with something scrawled in pen. She's changing the story. Move now. And a name tag with a broken pin. Half the name scraped up. What's left reads, a Keller. Your mouth goes dry. You flip the evidence card stapled to the bag. The officer's initials, K.D. Delano, same as the name on the photo from the archive. You double-check the logbook. No Delano listed anywhere in the chain of custody. No report filed for this drawer. No evidence barcode assigned. You hold the glove in your hand for just a moment before remembering protocol. You slide on latex gloves, reseal the bag, and take photographs. But one thing doesn't make sense. If this drawer isn't mapped, and this evidence was never processed, why does it exist at all? You return to your desk, search the internal personnel database. Officer K. Delano. No record found. You check historical transfers. Still nothing. But in the depths of an archived interdepartmental memo, you find something. Delano, K. Temporary detail. Records consolidation. Terminated early. No badge reissued. Status unauthorized presence in evidence room B. Logged once. No follow-up. Just once. The night of the murder. You sit back. Think of the glove, the napkin, The way Maya looked at you like she was asking if you were ready to hear something dangerous. You returned to your notes, flipped through Maya's earliest sketch again. The figure standing in the hallway, same posture as in the surveillance photo. But now, you notice the left hand. It's blurred, smudged like she changed it halfway through. No fingers visible, just a blank glove. You get up and walk to the mirror in your office, lift your left hand, and suddenly, you don't remember where you were that night. Not clearly, not completely, just noise, just rain, just flickering images. Your alibi is paper thin, and now that you're looking closely, there's a hole where certainty used to be. What if you weren't the one investigating the lie? What if you were the lie? You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones with keys that don't belong to them. It was never about tampered evidence. It was about what that evidence was protecting you from. The witness you can't contact. You dial her number again, straight to voicemail. The fifth time today, the sixth since last night. You alternate between wanting to believe she's just gone off grid and knowing, deep down, that someone made her disappear. Maya Keller didn't just change her story. She detonated a narrative that was meticulously constructed. She turned a clean conviction into a festering mess. And now, she's vanished like a loose end. Someone got tired of pulling on. You play her last voicemail again. You're not going to want to hear this, but listen anyway. There's a pause, shaky breath. You can hear the panic pressing through her voice like a weight she can't keep off. It's not about him. It was never about him. They built the case around a story I didn't tell. I went along with it until the sketches started changing. The tone shifts. It's happening again. I see new things each time I draw, things that weren't there before, but they are now. You were in the hallway, or maybe someone wanted you to think you were static. If anything happens to me, check the studio. Click. No signature, no goodbye, just a final piece of string left dangling. You hit redial anyway. One more ring, voicemail, again. You sit back, staring at the corkboard in your office. Threads now run between 8 points. The hallway sketch, the surveillance photo, the glove, the forged name tag, the prosecutor's sealed case, the hidden drawer, the missing officer, Delano. And now Maya. You pin her name dead center. Circle it. Then get in your car. Her studio's across town, in the arts district where gentrification stalled and left half the buildings in limbo. You knock. Once, twice, then push open the side door she never locked. The smell of oil paint and dust hits immediately. The space is empty. Not just abandoned, emptied. Canvas frames stripped bare. Sketches gone. The clothesline wires hang like the ribs of a missing animal. You search everything. Desks, cabinets, under rugs, nothing until the sink. The garbage disposal hums faintly. You reach in carefully, pull out a handful of torn paper, edges jagged, charred. You flatten one against the counter. It's part of a face, your face, drawn in graphite with an accuracy that feels personal, invasive. The eyes look wrong, not because Maya failed, but because she got too close. You sift the rest. Most of it is unrecognizable, but one thing catches your attention. Tucked behind the fridge, a small Polaroid, mostly intact. Maya and you, from 6 years ago, smiling, together. But here's the problem. You don't remember this photo being taken. You don't remember knowing her that long ago. You flip it over. A note in Maya's handwriting. If you ever remember this day, run. You sit on the edge of the counter, head in hands. What if the story didn't begin when the murder happened? What if it began when you were rewritten? What if Maya didn't just change her story to expose the truth? What if she changed it to protect you? You check the door again. Still ajar. Still no one. But you feel it now. That sensation you've had since this started. Like someone's been walking one step behind you. Not following. Just matching. Everyone lies, especially the ones who leave notes meant for your future self. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the witness going silent. It was about her knowing exactly what not to say. Everyone rehearsed the wrong truth. You sit in your office with the lights off, the only glow coming from your laptop screen and the single desk lamp that hums like it knows the weight of what you're doing. You're watching courtroom footage again, not because you think you missed something, but because you know you didn't. And that's what's bothering you. Every witness said the right thing. Every response felt rehearsed, not polished scripted. You rewind the moment Maya first took the stand. Watch the DA lean forward slightly, as if cueing a line. Watch Maya glance at him, not nervously, but like she's awaiting a prompt. She begins to speak, and the cadence is unnervingly even, like someone reading from a memory that isn't theirs. You rewind another witness, the building manager. You remember his testimony felt solid at the time. Now, it just feels identical in tone. Word perfect. A pause in the same place Maya paused. Then another witness. Same thing. You cross-reference all three. Same phrasing in two different statements. I heard a scuffle near the stairwell, but didn't see anything. A coincidence, maybe, until you find their initial interviews, handwritten transcripts, and in none of them does that phrase appear. You whisper to the empty room. They were coached. No, not just coached. Directed. You dig deeper. You find an audio clip buried in discovery files mislabeled, which is probably why no one caught it. It's from 2 weeks before the trial. A conference call. 5 voices. Distorted. You isolate them. One by one. You hear phrases. Let's keep it consistent. Maya's unsure will reinforce memory pathways. Frame it as clarification, not correction. Then, he won't remember anyway. You stop the tape. You rewind. Play it again. Same line. He won't remember anyway. You knew, but pretended you didn't. They weren't worried about lies. They were confident in your amnesia. A knock at the door breaks your focus. You flinch. No one should be here. You check the peephole. An envelope slid under the door. You open it. Inside a single page. Typed. Actors. Props. Rehearsals. Scripts. You weren't just watching the trial. You were in it. No name. No signature. But on the back, a time and address. Tonight. 11:34 p.m. Same time as the broken clock in the victim's apartment. Same location as the murder. You close your laptop. Slide on your coat. The city outside is breathing too loud. What if the trial wasn't about justice? What if it was performance? And what if Maya's revised testimony wasn't new? It was the first honest line in the entire show. Everyone lies, especially the ones who call it the truth under oath. It was never about what was said. It was about who wrote the script. The clock stopped at 11:34. The address leads you to an old tenement building on the edge of Hollow Ridge, one of those blocks that vanished from the map years ago, but still exists in memory and misfiled mail. The kind of place people disappear into, not from. The building looms like it's waiting for someone to return to it. You push through the warped front door. No security system. Just dust and darkness. Third floor. Apartment 3C. The apartment where Jonathan Reems died. It was supposed to be locked since the trial, but tonight, the door is cracked open. You push it slowly. Inside, nothing has changed, except everything has. You step into a freeze frame. Furniture covered in plastic sheets. Crime scene tape still strung across the living room like a failed boundary spell. A half-shattered mirror leans against the far wall, reflecting you in pieces. And then the clock on the kitchen wall. Black plastic, old-fashioned, still stained with something rust red near the base. Frozen at 11:34. You walk toward it. It's the exact time from the evidence report, the moment the building manager claimed he heard a thud. But that time never made sense. No neighbors corroborated it. No surveillance footage survived beyond 11:32. Still, here it is, the moment immortalized in broken machinery. You pull the clock down. The hands wiggle, loose, and inside the clock's back panel, taped behind the battery case, is a folded photograph. You open it. It's a still from a video, blurry but unmistakable. It's you in the hallway, not just the coat, the face, your face, looking directly into the camera. But you never looked at a camera that night. You weren't there, were you? You lower the photo, a sound behind you, the ticking. The clock is working again, but now it reads 11:34 p.m. Your phone lights up in your pocket. Unknown number. Do you remember what you said when you left that night? You freeze. Then a second message. Neither do we. That's the point. You scan the room. Your reflection in the cracked mirror is smiling, but you're not. You walk toward the mirror, closer, and for just one moment, you swear you see someone else's hand at your side, reaching out, then retracting. You don't know what scares you more, the possibility that you were at the scene, or the possibility that someone made you think you were. Everyone lies, especially the ones who remember too clearly. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the time of death. It was about the moment you stopped trusting your own memory. A key with no door. You stare at the photo long after the ticking stops. Then you do what instinct says you shouldn't. You turn the clock over again, beneath the tape where the photograph was hidden. Another item is wedged behind the wiring. A key, no label, no tag. Old brass, smooth and cold. Not a house key. Too rounded. Not a car key. Too heavy. A shape that feels intentionally obsolete, like it unlocks something that shouldn't exist anymore. You hold it in your palm and feel it hum, not literally, but there's something in your chest that responds like recognition wrapped in anxiety. A memory. No, a suggestion of one. You pocket the key and leave the apartment. Every step down the hall sounds muffled, like the walls are trying not to hear you. You don't notice the cold until you're outside again, back in the wet black night. Your phone buzzes. Maya. A text. No words, just a photo. A door, painted red. A keyhole that matches the shape of what's in your pocket. You text her back. No response. You zoom in on the image. The number on the door is scratched, but you make it out 721. You know that building. An old hotel, condemned years ago, but never torn down. The Red Hill Arms. You don't drive. You walk. A decision you can't explain. Maybe the cold helps. Maybe you want to feel something other than the question burrowing into your skull. Was this always your story, or did someone write you into it halfway through? When you reach Red Hill, it's worse than you remembered. The sign out front is canted sideways. Graffiti scars every surface. The front entrance is chained shut, but the side alley door hangs open just enough to suggest an invitation. You enter. The smell is mildew and rot, layered with something else hushed intentions. You move through the dark with your phone flashlight bouncing off broken glass and exposed dry wall. Room 721 is on the top floor. You climb slowly, like ascending into a version of yourself that still remembers why this place matters. When you reach the door, your hand is already shaking. You insert the key. It turns too easily. The lock clicks open like it's been waiting. Inside, the room is perfectly preserved. Not clean, just untouched. There's a desk, a single chair, a corkboard filled with photos of you, of Maya, of the courtroom, maps with strings pinned, newspaper clippings, and in the center, a sketch. The hallway again, but this one has no figure, just an eye drawn in the place where the face used to be. It stares straight at you. Pinned beside it, a note in handwriting that isn't yours or Maya's. He never remembered. That's why it worked. You turn slowly. The air in the room has shifted, like someone just walked out. Or in. You're not sure anymore. Your hand goes to your pocket. The key is still there, but it's warm now, like it absorbed something from the lock, like it knows what it opened. You snap a photo of the sketch, fold the note, leave everything else behind. As you walk back down the stairs, you think, if the truth needed this many keys, maybe it was never meant to be unlocked. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about what door the key opened. It was about why you had it in the first place. Her eyes in the photograph shifted. You sit at your kitchen table in the dark, a single lamp casting warped shadows across a pile of evidence that no longer behaves like evidence. The key, the clock, the sketch with the missing figure. Maya's voicemail still echoes in your thoughts like a whisper coming from inside the drywall. You stare at the photo again, the original surveillance shot from the hallway. Something's wrong. Not the figure you've already accepted, against all reason, that it might be you. It's her, in the corner of the frame, partially obscured behind the doorway. Maya, the original testimony, said she saw the victim fall from the top of the hallway stairs. But in this frame, she's not looking at the body. She's looking at you. You stare hard, then pull up the digital file on your laptop. Enhance. Zoom. The resolution's low, grainy, but it's unmistakable. In the version saved on your drive last week, her gaze is toward the floor. In this one, she's watching you. You print both images, set them side by side. One with Maya looking down, one with Maya watching you. Same photo, different truths. You turn them over. The back of the first image is blank. The back of the second has something new handwritten in thin black pen. You didn't see it then. You weren't supposed to. No signature. You flip it back. The light overhead flickers, and in that exact moment, you remember something. You didn't meet Maya for the first time in court. You met her in Red Hill Arms, long before the trial, back when you were investigating another case, another death no one wanted to touch. The woman in 7A. She fell or jumped or was pushed, and Maya was the only witness then, too. Back then, she said she saw nothing, just like now, only backward. You dig through your old files, find a case folder you haven't opened in 5 years, case 14RH07, subject, Lauren Reddick, dead, found at the base of the stairwell, witness Maya Keller. But the report ends mid-sentence, pages missing. You flip to the evidence summary. One entry listed and marked lost photo, lobby cam, 11:34 p.m. The same time, the same number. the same Maya, and suddenly the question burns through you. How many trials has she rewritten? You call her again. Voicemail. This time, you leave one. I remember Red Hill now. I remember the other girl, and I remember you lied back then, too. But I think you were protecting someone. The question is, was it me? You don't expect a response. So when your phone buzzes, 5 minutes later, you freeze. Unknown number. You answer. Nothing. Then a soft voice. Miles, look under the floor. Click. No more. You don't know if it was Maya, but the voice felt familiar, like it had been speaking to you long before this case ever started. You pry up a board beneath your kitchen table. Tape holds a folder to the underside. You tear it free. Inside, a third photo of the hallway this time. Both of you are visible. A burned matchbook from Red Hill Arms. A single note. You weren't the stranger. You were the test. You lean back in your chair, cold sweat running down your spine. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about Maya changing her story. It was about who gave her the story to change. The victim's voice isn't dead yet. You replay the voicemail again, this time through headphones. The voice is soft, female, definitely Maya's, but there's something strange in the background. A low hum, like a fan, or an old cassette spinning. You isolate the audio, loop it, run it through your waveform software. Underneath the message, you hear another voice, faint, but it's there, not live, recorded. You clean the file as best you can. It's degraded, like it's been copied too many times. But when you raise the gain and slow it slightly, a chilling phrase cuts through the distortion. If something happens to me, it was planned. You freeze. The voice doesn't belong to Maya. It belongs to Jonathan Reams, the victim. And that sentence, it's from an interview, a podcast he recorded 6 days before his death. A throwaway line that made no waves until now. You find the original podcast episode, Doubt Everything, a niche true crime show where Reams guest hosted for a night. He was supposed to talk about wrongful convictions, but in the last 5 minutes he goes off script. You cue it up. He says, "Look, I've worked with people who lie professionally. I know what it sounds like when someone tells the truth and still gets punished for it. You ever hear the same story told 3 different ways by 3 different people, and somehow it still adds up? That's not consistency. That's choreography." Then, the killer line. "If something happens to me, it was planned." You scrub backward. Listen again. He laughs after it, shrugs it off. But it was never a joke. You pull the audio's metadata. It was edited post-broadcast. The timestamp of the original file doesn't match the public release. The real version was longer by 4 minutes. You track down the show's producer. After some prodding and a half-threat involving press exposure, he admits it. There was pressure to cut it. He says, legal pressure. From whom? He doesn't say. But he sends you the unedited file. The missing 4 minutes are rambling, chaotic. Jonathan talks about his past. A list of names. One of them is Maya Keller. Another yours? The guy investigating me. He doesn't even know we've met before. They made him forget. Or maybe he let them. Either way, I'm not the important one. She is. She's the hinge. You stop the file. Hinge. A pivot point. Maya wasn't just a witness. She was the fulcrum around which this entire trial balanced. And Reams knew it. Your phone vibrates again. A new photo. No message. Just a scan of a police report from 2015. Redacted names. But one line stands out in bold, Witness number 2 confirmed under duress. Statement likely influenced by prosecutorial direction. The box marked Witness number 2 has one letter visible through the black bar M. Your hands tremble. Reams knew he'd be taken out. He left breadcrumbs. And Maya, she was always more than just the witness who changed her story. She was the only one who still remembered where it began. You step to your hallway mirror. Look at yourself again. Only not yourself. That's the thing. Every time you look lately, the reflection shows you someone just a few decisions removed from who you thought you were. And suddenly, a question surfaces you never dared to voice. What if Reams wasn't the real victim? What if the case wasn't a tragedy? What if it was a cleanup job? And you were handed the mop. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about silencing a witness. It was about silencing a recording. And now, the voice is playing again, louder than ever. You were there, but you weren't. You don't sleep that night. You lie on the couch in your office, lights dimmed. The glow of your laptop screen cutting across the cluttered corkboard like a surgical incision. You play the podcast audio again. Jonathan Reams saying your name like a riddle, like a warning. The guy investigating me. He doesn't even know we've met before. You scrub the audio backward, forward, searching for a context that might justify it. A shared event, a casual meeting, anything. But your memory stays silent, which feels less like innocence and more like design. You start digging. Old photos, conference archives, criminal justice symposiums from 5, 6, 7 years ago. And there he is, Jonathan Reams, standing at a panel. And there you are, 2 seats down, same row, date 2016. You even have a name tag on, Detective Miles Rennick. The caption underneath the photo mentions you both speaking at a session called When Memory Fails Justice. The irony punches you in the gut because you don't remember being there, not even a flicker. You print the image, pin it beside the hallway sketches, then pull up your email archive from that year. One search, one match. Subject, follow up on Maya K. Sender, Jonathan Reams. But when you open it, message deleted. No body, no metadata, just a blank shell. As if someone reached into your digital life and carved out the memory, the moment, and left the shell behind like a dead tooth. You check the mail server logs. It wasn't deleted recently. It was deleted before it ever arrived. Backdated, buried, rerouted. Which means whoever did it knew how to manipulate the system from inside. You sit in the quiet, trying to piece it together. Maya's evolving testimony, Ream's vanishing message, the photos changing like they're gaslighting you through pixels. And now this, a memory you should have, but don't. You close your eyes, and for the first time, something bleeds through. A hotel hallway. Your footsteps, a cold metal door, someone crying softly behind it. You knock, the crying stops, and then a voice, hushed. You promised I'd never have to testify again. You open your eyes, gasping. You check your notes, search the Reams case logs, the supplemental witness lists. No mention of a prior testimony. But then one match, one sealed deposition. Witness B, session marked confidential, recorded but never transcribed. Attached a single redacted document, audio marked incomplete due to file corruption. The witness, Maya Keller. The location, Red Hill Arms Hotel. You stare at the screen. This wasn't the first case. It was the second act. You weren't called to investigate the Reams murder. You were brought in to finish what someone else buried. And they picked you because they knew your mind was a blank page where these memories should have been. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Because that's what forgetting allows. It was never about solving a crime. It was about whether you were used to commit one. The defense attorney lied for free. You track him down in the middle of a closing argument for a new trial. Something about arson. Something with no press attention. Which tells you all you need to know about where his reputation currently sits. Derek Vale, defense attorney, slick when he wants to be, disheveled when it works better for the jury. The kind of man who always seems to know what's almost admissible. He doesn't see you at first until you step into the corridor outside courtroom 6B. Detective Rennick, he says, smoothing his tie but not his expression. Didn't think you still worked this beat. I don't. You reply, not officially. His smile twitches. So, this is personal? You hold up the photo, the one from the conference. 2016. Him, Reams, you. Maya seated in the second row. Blurry, but unmistakable. Tell me the truth. Derek. He stares at it, doesn't blink. Then, didn't think that photo still existed. You press. You said during trial you'd never met Jonathan Reams before this case. You told the court you didn't know Maya Keller until she took the stand. And technically, he says, I didn't. Not as a client, not as a friend. You step closer. But as what? He doesn't answer immediately. Then, low, as a rehearsal partner. The words hit harder than expected. You stare at him. Excuse me, he sighs, adjusting his briefcase, like he's stalling for a confession he already regrets. We practiced the trial 3 times, he says, before it ever started. Same room, same testimonies, same cast. You can't breathe for a moment. Are you saying this entire thing was staged? He says quickly. No, Dr. Tinton. The murder happened. Reams is dead. But the rest, the roles, the reactions, the prosecution's rhythm, my objections, they were all templated. For what? For you. You feel your heart thud in your ears. He leans in. They were never trying to prove guilt or innocence. They were trying to see how you responded when the story changed. Why me? He almost laughs. Because you're the controlled subject, the one who forgot. You step back like the hallway tilted. You were coached once too, he continues, voice softer now. Years ago, you and Maya, before she ever testified the first time, Red Hill, the sealed deposition, you both watched the same footage. He says, the same event, but she remembered, you didn't. They needed to know which of you would crack first if the scene changed. The scene, the hallway sketch, the missing minutes of surveillance footage. What was the point, you ask? To test how the truth behaves when the wrong person remembers it. You shake your head, and you just went along with it. His smile fades completely. I didn't take a fee, not for that case. Why? He stares at the courtroom door, then says something utterly louder than breath. Because I think I was part of it too. Once, you knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones who claim neutrality. It was never about proving who killed Jonathan Reams. It was about seeing if you remembered being there first. The body was never autopsied. You request the autopsy report again, not because you think something will change, but because everything else already has. The coroner's office resists. That file's sealed. They say, unseal it. You reply, I can't. Why not? It was never opened. You pause. What do you mean it was never opened? I mean exactly that, the clerk says, voice cracking like glass underweight. There was no post-mortem. The family refused. Religious grounds. Direct cremation ordered. That's not possible. You mutter. There was blood evidence. Trauma indicators. All noted externally. She replies. Bag was never opened. Case was considered closed before the request could be processed. You ask for the body tag, the paperwork. Anything? She sends a single scanned sheet. Date February 15th. Time of death. Unofficial estimated. Identification visual match only. Cause presumed blunt force trauma. Presumed, not confirmed. The victim's body, the very foundation of the trial, was never proven to be Jonathan Reams by science. Only by someone saying, "That looks like him." You hang up, pull the photos from the night of the murder, the ones shown to the jury. You zoom in. No face shown, covered by a sheet. Blood on the floor, hand exposed. But something catches your eye now. Something you didn't see before. A tattoo, left wrist, an Ouroboros, a snake eating its tail. You check Ream's official ID records. No mention of a tattoo. You cross-reference his media photos, public appearances. Nothing. Not a single image shows ink on either wrist. But in the photo, there it is. Clear, visible, deliberate. You call Maya. She doesn't answer. So you text her a photo of the wrist. "Is this him?" 3 dots. Then she replies, "No, but that's who they wanted it to be." You call again. Still no answer. You pace your office, head spinning. If the body wasn't Reams, who was it? And where's he now? You pull the podcast footage again. Watch Reams speak. Analyze his eye movement, his tone, his confidence. He didn't sound like someone being stalked by death. He sounded like someone staging it. You pull up one final document from your archives, an emergency alert from that same night. 911 call, logged, never returned. Caller disconnected mid-sentence. Transcript reads, "They got the wrong click. Call time, 11:34 p.m. You sit in silence. What if Reams faked his death? What if the murder was a switch? What if the entire trial was a crucible to see who'd notice? And what if Maya, who changed her story, was simply trying to end the performance? Your computer pings. An email. No sender. Subject. Confirmation. One line in the body. The man in the body bag was a rehearsal actor. Ask the coroner why the dental records didn't match. You stare at the screen. The court convicted someone of a murder that may not have happened. And the real Reams, if he's alive, he's watching. And if you were part of the original deception, he's waiting for you to remember. Everyone lies, especially the ones they forget to bury. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about identifying the victim. It was about recognizing that the death was theater, and you might have been the one who designed the script. The trial was rehearsed. You find the footage in the unlikeliest of places, a forgotten hard drive from an old interview setup you used 3 years ago, before you stopped trusting video altogether. The folder is simply labeled Trial Prep. You almost delete it. Then you notice the date 2 weeks before the Reams trial began. You click. What loads isn't courtroom footage. It's a mock trial. Same room layout. Same prosecution bench. Same players. Even you. Your mouth goes dry. The lighting is wrong. The paint on the wall is different. The flags are reversed. It's a replica, not perfect, but close enough to rehearse every beat. You press play. Maya walks to the witness stand, calm, silent. She recites the version of events that was later reversed during the actual trial. Except here, she hesitates in the exact same places, uses the exact same words, word for word, scripted. You skip forward. The prosecution delivers their closing argument. Same tone, Same language. They refer to Reams in the past tense as if already agreed upon. The defense doesn't argue innocence. He offers context. A second video loads immediately after the first ends. This one is a wide shot. And there, in the gallery, you watching, not in uniform, not with a notepad, just sitting, as if you were part of the production team. The screen flickers. A third file begins. Maya and the prosecutor Collins in a side room, going over lines, adjusting cadence, practicing how she'll respond when the defense asks about inconsistencies. Maya says something that makes your skin crawl. What if he doesn't remember me? Collins laughs. Then the experiment worked. You pause the video. Your throat is tight. Your mind screams for an escape hatch, a trapdoor in the floor of this reality. You resume playback. Maya continues, voice lower. And what if he starts to remember? Then he becomes part of the story. A fourth video auto-loads. You speaking to Maya in the hall, but not the real you. You're wearing the same coat. You're saying things in your voice, but it's an actor playing you, playing a detective named Miles Rennick before you ever joined the case, before the case ever existed. Your hand hovers over the screen. This isn't discovery evidence. This is design. This trial didn't just get corrupted. It was never real. It was an orchestration, a psychodrama, a long, careful test to see how far a person could go when their memories were tampered with and truth was molded like wet clay. And you were at the center. Your phone rings, blocked caller. You answer, static. Then a voice, familiar. Yours. Stop watching. Start remembering. Click. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones reading from scripts. It was never about a fair trial. It was about whether you'd realize you were the only one who hadn't rehearsed. The judge recuses herself too late. You pull her court transcripts. Every ruling, every overruled objection, every time she cut the defense short or gave the prosecution leeway, no one challenged. Judge Clarissa Vaughn, unshakable, polished, revered for being unbiased. But now you see her through a different lens, a lens bent by the knowledge that the trial was staged long before the gavel hit the bench. And you find it, an anomaly in her case calendar. 1 week before the trial began, she submitted a sealed motion to the Judicial Oversight Board. Motion to recuse. Grounds: conflict of interest. Status: withdrawn. You dig deeper. You call in a favor from a clerk you trust less than you fear silence. He sends over a copy of the original filing illegally, unredacted. Buried in the justification is a name you haven't seen in weeks. And now, it comes back like cold breath on the back of your neck. Jonathan Reams. She didn't say why, only that she'd had prior interaction outside the scope of judicial capacity. The phrase reeks of damage control. You need more. You search Reams' case history. It's not there. So you look at his mother's lawsuit from 2010, a class action against the state's probationary board, a case dismissed after one preliminary hearing. Presiding Judge Clarissa Vaughn. You read through the notes. Reams was in the room, spoke on her behalf. The notes quote him saying, "If I vanish next time, it won't be because I'm guilty." He said that 11 years ago. You sit back, heart thudding. It was all connected, but it gets worse. You access Vaughn's archived email records, the ones she never thought would see daylight. The night before Maya recanted her testimony, Vaughn sent a message to a private contact labeled Silver Protocol. If she changes the story, we lose the subject. I can't steer this much longer. Subject, not suspect, not defendant. Subject. They weren't prosecuting Reams. They were observing you. You cross-referenced the term silver protocol. One hit, a DOJ-funded psychological resilience study tied to legal systems as behavioral mirrors. A concept simulate trauma, memory loss, truth fracture and monitor cognitive ethics in real time. Test subjects anonymized, but the name on the final funding requisition stands out. Dr. W. Lennox. You whisper. I know that name because once, years ago, during an investigation into a missing person, you'd been referred to a cognitive specialist who worked in memory reclamation. Dr. Lennox was quiet, professional, and forgettable. You now wonder if that wasn't by accident. You call the clerk back, ask one question. Where is Judge Vaughn now? His voice drops. She resigned. Yesterday morning. No press release. No announcement. Just gone. Your phone buzzes. One message. She knew you'd get this far. Look under her bench. You return to the courthouse. You flash an expired badge. It works. Fear moves faster than procedure. Courtroom 4. Judge Vaughn's seat. You duck under the bench. Tape holds a folder to the underside. You peel it loose. Inside a photo. You. Hooked up to wires. Electrodes across your temples. Asleep. Dreaming. Maybe. A label at the bottom. Subject 6. Memory interruption. Test number 3. Result inconclusive. You touch your temple. You can feel the scar now. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones who wear robes instead of masks. It was never about justice. It was about seeing how far they could bend the truth before you broke. The real trial never left the lab. The photo haunts you. You at rest, strapped to machines, not injured, not restrained, wired, as if you were never meant to wake up the same. You scan the label again, Subject 6, and the clinical title, Memory Interruption Test Number 3. There's no courtroom logo, no Justice Department stamp, just the crest of a private think tank buried under layers of shell companies the Obsidian Research Group. You call the only person who might know more, Dr. Lennox, but the number you have is disconnected, so you drive out past the city, past the clean sidewalks and broken courthouses, toward the place where they tried to forget you. Obsidian's old field facility sits in a decommissioned federal building just beyond Red Hill, the kind of place that doesn't have security cameras, because no one's supposed to come back, but you do. And the door, it's unlocked. Inside, it smells of dry rot and abandoned protocols, file cabinets, dusty terminals, lab equipment covered in white sheets. But in one corner, beneath a tarp, you find it. A simulation room, mock courtroom furniture, two-way mirrors, jury boxes made of particle board, a stage, not a chamber, and taped to a podium your name, Detective Miles Rennick. A thick folder rests beneath it. Trial script. Phase 3. Observer. Notes. Subject exhibiting signs of narrative assimilation. Does not question timeline discrepancies. Dream memory boundaries hold. Maya remains a reliable tether. You flip the page. There's a checklist titled Crisis Catalysts. Photograph planted. Sketch introduced. Witness reversal triggered. Clock moment aligned. Hallway recreation verified. Your breath stalls. This wasn't an experiment about Reams. It was about you. How you absorb contradiction. How far your loyalty to facts could stretch before breaking. And Maya, she wasn't just a participant. She was the control variable. Every time she revised her testimony, she was watching you, measuring how you adapted, whether you noticed inconsistencies or whether you justified them. You run a black light over the page. A hidden sentence glows. If subject reaches phase 4 without collapse, reinitiate baseline or terminate simulation. Your fingers curl around the edge of the table. Phase 4. You're in it now. Aren't you? Suddenly, the lights flicker. A generator kicks on deep in the building. You weren't alone. A screen across the room comes to life. Security cam feed. Live. You. Standing in this room. And behind you, a figure. You turn fast, but no one's there. The feed updates. The figure is gone, or still behind the glass. You whisper to no one, "Is this real?" And a speaker crackles. A voice, your voice, recorded, warped. Reality is just repetition with permission. The folder shakes in your hands. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones who give you the script and call it memory. It was never about solving a crime. It was about whether your mind could be rewritten and still believe it solved something at all. The jury never existed. You revisit the courtroom files, looking for something solid: jury selection records, juror questionnaires, anything that might confirm this wasn't just theater with better lighting. But nothing adds up. No juror names, no selection audio, no recorded voir dire. The official record shows a sealed jury process approved due to sensitive psychological factors. You pull the court camera feed from day one of the trial. You freeze the shot on the gallery 12 heads, half turned away from the lens, too still, too quiet. You zoom in. Every juror is out of sync, like they're watching a different version of reality than what's happening in front of them. You dig deeper. Cross-reference jury pool registration. The clerk's logs. No names match. Not one. You open the trial transcript. You notice it now. The questions are leading, not just from attorneys, but from the bench. Even the judge's phrasing steers testimony towards certain emotional outcomes. The verdict comes down with no deliberation time. 14 minutes. You look at the room again. It's a theater. They weren't jurors. They were audience. Or maybe actors. And you, subject number 6, had a role to play. That's when the email arrives. No subject line, just a single message. You never heard the jury speak. Not once. Why? You think back. They never asked questions, never sent notes to the judge, never made eye contact with you, never breathed. And now you see it. The one juror who always sat perfectly still, the older man in the far left seat. In every frame, identical posture, no visible reaction. You freeze the video. Zoom in. There's a seam in his neck, a mic receiver poking through. He was wired, not to listen, to feed lines. You scan your notes again. The defense's odd pauses, the synchronized phrasing. Every part of the courtroom was looped, observed, directed, timed. This wasn't justice. It was a study. You drive to the county archive, an old storage facility where trial tapes are still boxed under lock and key. You bluff your way in, badge long expired, and find the box marked State File, unknown sealed file, do not copy, inside VHS tapes, not digital, labeled by hand. Trial take 1, trial take 2, trial final cut, final cut. This wasn't your first time in that courtroom. It was just the first time you were allowed to remember. Your hands shake as you load the tape into an old monitor. You appear on screen. Maya's on the stand, but something's different. She's crying harder. You're shouting this time. The words, "I never saw that hallway. I never met him." Cut. New tape. Same scene. But now Maya says something else. "We were both there, but I was the only one awake." Cut. Tape 3, silence. Your voice is calm, flat, rehearsed. I confirm everything happened as presented. The past has no contradictions. The tape ends. A final line on the label, subject 6. Memory response. Profile fully adaptive. You collapse against the metal shelf. Your mind reels. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the ones behind the mirror. It was never about what the jury decided, because the jury was never real. It was about whether you'd believe the verdict handed to you by strangers wearing masks made of law. The confession was yours all along. You don't remember writing it, but the handwriting is yours. The paper is yellowed, tucked into an unmarked envelope slid under your door sometime after midnight. No knock, no sound, just this confession. Subject 6. I agreed to the trial. I agreed to forget. I agreed to watch myself lie. Because I believed the alternative was worse. Because truth without memory is unbearable. Because guilt is a better home than doubt. You read it again, then again, and it breaks something inside you. Because it feels true. Not in the way facts are true, but in the way buried shame hums in your bones. You pace the apartment like a man on a leash he tied himself. And then you pull out the oldest box you own back of the closet, duct taped at the seams. It's labeled Maya K. Personal in red marker. You'd forgotten it existed, or you chose to forget. Inside a newspaper clipping, youth testifies in Red Hill suicide inquest. No photo, but the witness's age matches Maya. A broken silver bracelet with the initials RK. A flash drive. You plug it in. One file. Detonation. It's audio. No timestamp, no metadata. Just breathing. Then your voice. Tell me again. From the beginning. Maya's voice responds. Clear. Young. He wasn't supposed to fall. You told me he would just remember. But he remembered too fast. You. What did I say after you told me? If the story ever changed, make sure I said it was mine. That I lied. You, and did you? Yes. Silence. Then you whisper. Thank you. The audio ends. You're numb. You played the game from the inside, not as a detective. As a designer, you built the narrative. Then you agreed to forget. But something slipped. Maya carried the story alone, protected you, absorbed every contradiction until the weight shattered her silence in that courtroom. That wasn't betrayal. That was release. And her reversal wasn't weakness. It was mercy. You reread the confession, then noticed something faint, scribbled on the back in pencil. If you're reading this, the loop is broken. You're free to leave the story or write the ending yourself. You stare at the wall, at the reflection in the cracked mirror, and you ask, finally, what if this was never about justice or control? What if it was about whether you choose to live inside the lie or burn the script before it devours you again? You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about whether Maya lied. It was about whether you could face the truth she protected you from. And now that you've heard your own confession, there's no silence loud enough to forget it. Someone else has the script now. You leave your apartment without locking the door. It feels symbolic, or maybe futile. Your coat is too light for the weather, but you don't care. You're not cold. You're burning from the inside out with a truth that can't be unseen, unheard, unwritten. The confession is folded in your back pocket. The flash drive is in your coat. The audio still ringing in your ears, your own voice, thanking someone for lying for you. You go to the courthouse, the real one, not the stage. You're not sure what you expect to find. Ashes, maybe. a chalk outline of where your life used to stand. Instead, the front doors are open. Business as usual. The clerk greets you like you've been coming here every day, like nothing is broken. And maybe that's the worst part. You climb the stairs, past courtroom 4. The seal on Judge Vaughan's office has been replaced. A new name etched in brass, Judge Walker. You knock once, then step back. No answer. You try the door. It opens. Inside, clean desk, new case files, fresh flowers. But taped beneath the desk, exactly where Vaughan once hid the file about you, you find something else. A script, thick, bound. Title page reads Trial, version 7. Subject 6 Reclamation Arc. Author S. Keller. You sit down hard. Maya. She didn't just reverse her story. She took control of it. You flip through the pages. It's not a script like a screenplay. It's interactive. Margins annotated. Alternate routes. Emotional contingencies. Suggested memories to suppress or reintroduce depending on reaction patterns. Each segment marked with a timestamp. Each timestamp tied to your behavior. At the very back, a note in her handwriting. You were never meant to remember forever, just long enough to choose differently. If you're reading this, I've stepped off stage. Let the story end or let it begin again. But this time, it has to be yours. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about a murder, or even a trial. It was about authorship, control, responsibility. And now, the script is blank past page 3 or 12. You pull out a pen, hesitate, then write one line. The story ends here. The lie doesn't survive the light, but the moment you finish it, a second pen mark appears underneath. Handwriting not yours, Maya's. We'll see. The past didn't happen. It was planted. You return to Red Hill one last time, not because you expect answers, but because the question won't stop echoing. What if nothing ever happened the way you remember? Not just the trial, not just Maya, everything. The hallway is colder now. Or maybe that's just you, the part of you that finally admits the walls of this memory were scenery all along. Inside the old room, 721, the boards have been torn down. The furniture's gone. Even the corkboard is bare. But scratched into the back of the door, hidden beneath peeled wallpaper, is a word you've never seen before. Reset. Your phone buzzes. One new file. No sender. An audio clip. 30 seconds long. You press play. A familiar voice. Yours. If this reaches me again, I've failed or I've refused. Either way, I'm back at the fork. There are 2 exits to this. The clean one and the real one. The clean one ends with me forgetting again. The real one ends when I finally face the first memory they took. You freeze, because that first memory has never surfaced. Not once, until now. You close your eyes, let it in. You're in a room, not a courtroom, not Red Hill. A clinic, bright, clean, cold. Maya is sitting in a chair, younger, maybe 17. You're standing over her with a file in hand, a red stamp across it. Candidate stage prime. She looks scared, and you're calm, too calm. Don't worry. You tell her. You won't remember any of this unless you have to. If you do, you'll know what to do next. The vision flickers. Your breath returns. You stagger back in the present, hand gripping the doorframe to stay upright. You weren't just a detective. You were an architect. You helped design the very loop that swallowed you. And Maya, she was the failsafe. She changed her story not because she was confused or scared or threatened, but because you trained her to, because you trusted her more than yourself, to recognize when the truth had to break the surface. You look down at your phone again. The message has changed. A line of text now appears below the audio. The story is not over unless you leave it unwritten. You look out into the hallway. There are footsteps in the dust, not yours, leading away. You follow them, down the stairs, out the building, into the soft rain. As you walk, the sounds of the city return slowly, like waking from anesthesia. Your breath fogs the air. Somewhere, in some locked cabinet, your original file still exists, the one with everything they made you forget. But you're not chasing it anymore, because the truth, the real truth, was never in the case files. It was in the choice. You could have left the loop sealed. You didn't. And now, you don't know if what comes next is justice, or freedom, or something more dangerous. But for the first time, it's yours. The rain isn't heavy. It falls like a hush, a gentle warning that the noise is done for now. You sit at the edge of the story, soaked but breathing, hands steady, heart slow. It doesn't feel like a resolution. Not exactly. More like the point in the music where everything fades and the silence plays the final note. You look back, but there's nothing to see. The courtroom's gone. The fake jurors, the mirrored memories, they dissolve behind you like fog curling off a windshield. You didn't find every answer. Some files remain sealed. Some faces you'll never name. And Maya, wherever she is, left the stage with the quiet grace of someone who already knew the ending and just wanted you to reach it on your own. You wonder how long you lived inside someone else's script, how many times the loop spun while you slept, how often you told yourself, I knew, but I didn't act, not this time. You stood in the middle of the lie and didn't blink. You questioned the photograph, the witness, the gavel, even your own reflection. And somewhere in that defiance, you rewrote something they never thought you would. Your role, not detective, not subject, not actor, witness, do the truth, do the lie, do yourself. A siren howls in the distance, the city stretches, and the story exhales. Now rest, night listener. The dark doesn't always hide monsters. Sometimes it just waits for you to look hard enough to see who's still standing when the lights come up. End of script. Sleep well and watch your back.